When Marvel Studios was crafting Spider-Man, No Way Home, the creative process wasn't just chaotic, it was borderline multiversal. Before the final version hit theaters, countless drafts were written, character arcs were shuffled like a deck of cards, and major storylines were tossed out faster than Peter Parker changes suits. What ended up on screen was incredible, but what didn't make the cut, that's where things get wild. It's easy to forget that back in 2019, when the planning phase for No Way Home kicked off, the entire direction of the film was drastically different. This was even before Spider-Man, Far From Home, had premiered. Back then, there wasn't even a plan to include Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. That massive crossover that blew everyone's minds? Not even on the table initially. The early drafts leaned heavily into one villain, Kraven the Hunter. After Mysterio exposed Peter Parker's identity to the world, the concept was that Kraven would be brought in to track Peter down. It was going to be more grounded, a hunted Spidey-type story, with less multiverse chaos and more psychological tension. That version of the movie was scrapped when Sony and Marvel had their brief fallout over the rights to Spider-Man. It forced both studios to renegotiate and reconfigure their plans, and that's when the floodgates of the multiverse started to crack open. As Sony pushed for more of its characters to be integrated into the MCU version of Spider-Man, the film evolved. But even then, there was uncertainty. No one was sure if Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire would even agree to return. And for a while, it looked like they wouldn't. So, Marvel worked on alternate versions of the script that could function without them. There was one version that leaned heavily into America Chavez, the multiverse-hopping teen hero who eventually made her debut in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. She was originally written into No Way Home and had a major role. In fact, there was concept art showing America Chavez opening portals and bringing in the other Spider-Men, with Peter, MJ, Ned, and Flash all there to witness the event. But the timing didn't work. Multiverse of Madness got delayed, and since America Chavez hadn't been introduced yet, Marvel had to cut her role entirely. Instead of America Chavez, they rewrote the script to give Ned Leeds the portal-opening powers with the sling ring, and that's how the Spider-Men eventually made their entrance. It's wild to think that Reddit, yes, Reddit, also had an influence on how the Spider-Men were revealed. The director, John Watts, admitted that he saw fan art on Reddit depicting a rooftop scene with two Doctor Strange portals opening and Garfield and Maguire stepping out dramatically. And just like that, they decided not to do it that way. It was too predictable. The fan base had guessed it, and Marvel wanted to subvert expectations. That's why the reveal became more casual, more spontaneous, with Ned accidentally opening portals and the Spider-Men stepping through in a totally unexpected way. But not all the ideas were winners. One suggestion, which was pitched to John Watts but quickly rejected, would have reduced Tobey and Andrew to mere cameos. The plan? Have them appear in the final battle out of nowhere, sling a web or two to save Tom Holland's Peter, then disappear with a quick, "Remember me? Bye." It was essentially the superhero version of a pop-in visit, and Watts flat out refused. These versions of Peter Parker meant too much to be reduced to fan service. Now, let's talk villains. And this is where things get spicy. Mysterio was supposed to come back. That's right. Quentin Beck faked his death in Far From Home, and in early versions of the No Way Home script, he was very much alive. There was going to be a scene where Peter discovers him at a high school football game. The twist? Mysterio wasn't in costume, and he was letting Peter beat him up in front of a huge crowd. A trap meant to discredit Spider-Man even more. J. Jonah Jameson would be there, capturing it all. The idea was to show how far public opinion had turned against Spider-Man. There's even concept art of Mysterio facing off against Doctor Strange during the Statue of Liberty battle. Michael Keaton's Vulture was also in the early drafts. There's artwork showing Peter dragging Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and Electro, all webbed up, to Vulture's front lawn, seeking help. In another sketch, Peter takes the villains to Vulture's garage to try and fix them before sending them back. Vulture was supposed to work with Peter, a kind of uneasy alliance, since he already knew Peter's identity. Michael Keaton would have had a new, gritty, scrapyard-style Vulture suit too, something cobbled together from junk after being down on his luck. But ultimately, Vulture got pulled into Sony's plans for Morbius, leaving this entire storyline behind. And then there's the Green Goblin chaos. Willem Dafoe's return was a highlight of the final film, but early drafts featured even more radical ideas. One version had him using Vulture's wings instead of his glider. Another had him steal armor from the Dark Elves, remember them from Thor, The Dark World, and incorporate that into a more monstrous goblin suit. At one point, there was even concept art of him wearing an Iron Man-style armor with a green and purple paint job, flying around on one of the EDITH drones from Far From Home. That idea got canned quickly. Fans already complained that MCU Spidey was too Iron Man dependent. Adding even more Stark tech to Goblin would have pushed it too far. Electro almost looked entirely different too. In early designs, his lightning was still blue, like in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. One concept had his lightning turn yellow in the new universe, but he still looked like his old electric eel mutant self. Other versions went full comic book accurate, giving him the lightning star face design. There was even an armored suit version with high-tech gear. What we got in the final film, the DIY Kevlar vest, arc reactor power core, was a stripped-down but more grounded version that still felt cooler than his previous look. That redesign, by the way, was a big reason Jamie Foxx even agreed to come back. He didn't want to be blue again. The lizard? Yeah, he almost got a major upgrade too. Early concepts gave him a much more monstrous, lizard-like body. Think longer snout, more scales, less humanoid. He even had designs with a lab coat and purple pants. Very comic book accurate. One version gave him a robotic control suit, similar to how Doc Ock's tentacles controlled him. But the creative team pulled back. They didn't want to change his look too drastically, because audiences needed to recognize him from The Amazing Spider-Man. And since Lizard had the least amount of screen time among the villains, his design wasn't a top priority. The big bridge fight? That scene originally had Green Goblin showing up early and not just attacking Spider-Man. He was supposed to go after Doc Ock too. There was a chaotic three-way battle, complete with a collapsing bridge, civilians running for cover, and even a derailed train. All of that got toned down in the final cut. Even Doc Ock almost got a total redesign. Some versions had him older, with a beard and long hair. Others went for comic-style jumpsuits and goggles. Ultimately, they chose a refined take on his Spider-Man 2 look to bridge the gap between old and new. The goal? Keep it familiar. Keep it emotional. That balance between nostalgia and clarity guided every decision. Too much change and things felt disconnected. Too much tech, and it all started to feel like Iron Man again. These concept pieces show just how many directions Marvel explored before finding the one that truly worked. One idea that might have stirred the pot involved Green Goblin actually using an Iron Man suit instead of his classic gear. There were sketches of Norman flying around in full-on Iron Goblin armor, complete with color tweaks and enhanced weaponry. The glider was replaced with jet propulsion, and pumpkin bombs were swapped for laser blasts. Visually cool? Sure. But it risked turning Goblin into just another armored villain, which would have undermined his raw, chaotic menace. The final version kept him unhinged, grounded, and terrifying, and it worked. And that Statue of Liberty fight? It always seemed like the intended finale. Early art shows the shield being constructed and damaged, with all the villains converging there. It was a constant across versions. But the lineup changed. Venom in some, Mysterio in others, Vulture here and there. They really toyed with the idea of making it a true Sinister Six showdown. In the end, 5 was enough. The 6th villain got lost at the bar, quite literally. Looking back at MJ's near fall and how it ended up becoming Andrew Garfield's redemptive moment, this was one of those cases where a small decision made a huge emotional difference. The original concept had the cloak of levitation catching her, but that would have been forgettable. Giving Andrew that save? That one moment redeemed an entire character arc and brought fans to tears. It wasn't just cool, it was storytelling with heart. The fans who spotted Ned on a goblin glider in concept art were quick to connect the dots to Hobgoblin theories. And while Marvel confirmed it was just a fun nod, there's no denying it sparked excitement. What if Ned did go dark? What if that pumpkin bomb he tossed wasn't just a callback, but a hint of things to come? For now, it's just one of many paths not taken, but maybe one to revisit down the line. Some of the concept art also revealed deleted multiverse travel scenes. Imagine if Strange and Peter really did bounce through Andrew and Toby's worlds, swinging through the train battle in Spider-Man 2, glimpsing Gwen's fall in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, or even landing in the wrestling ring from the first Raimi film. These would have been dream moments for longtime fans. But maybe it was too much nostalgia packed into one movie. Marvel had to strike a balance between homage and overkill. And then there's that mysterious concept of the multiverse fight in the clock tower. The exact timing was never clear. Was it before Gwen's death? After? During? That ambiguity added to the intrigue. It wasn't just about cool visuals. It was about playing with time, memory, and legacy. A fight in a place that meant so much could have added real emotional stakes. But again, not everything made it in. Sometimes, less is more. Even the Lizard, who barely had much to say in the final cut, was almost a radically different beast. With robotic armor, control tech, and multiple snout-heavy redesigns, he could have been a lot more monstrous. But there was always that risk. Change the look too much, and suddenly it's no longer the same character from The Amazing Spider-Man. Consistency was key. Familiarity, even more so. And as wild as all these scrapped ideas were, they all came from a desire to push the story further, to explore every angle, to go as big as possible, then scale it back where necessary. Because No Way Home wasn't just another Spider-Man movie. It was the end of a trilogy, the birth of the multiverse, and a heartfelt goodbye and hello all at once. It needed to hit hard, and it did. What No Way Home gave fans wasn't just fan service, it was fan respect. And even though many ideas were left behind, every one of them helped shape the story that millions came to love. So next time Spider-Man swings across the screen, just remember, there's a multiverse of stories that almost happened. And maybe, just maybe, some of them still might. Thanks for watching. If any of those scrapped ideas seemed like they would have made the movie even better, drop a comment below. Which one should have made the final cut? Was it the Mysterio football fight? The multiverse sword battle? Ned the Hobgoblin? Or maybe the full-on Iron Green Goblin chaos? Hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell to never miss more deep dive breakdowns, alternate timelines, and behind-the-scenes reveals.